You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
It's night 3 of the RNC, the Republican National Convention. And as customary, on that third night, you would have the vice presidential candidate speak. And Ohio Senator J.D. Vance will be closing out the night. From my notes, he will probably talk about his small town, Ohio upbringing. He will talk about the American dream, and he will obviously talk about where he fits within the MAGA base. That is supposed to come up sometime around 7:30. We will have his complete remarks uninterrupted whenever he should begin, so you need not worry about missing anything that the vice presidential candidate, Senator J.D. Vance, would have to say tonight. Something else that I've noticed about this particular convention, if you don't watch these, you may not notice how this is different from others. It's different in this way. Usually, your nominee doesn't show up until the final night when he or she is slated to speak. In this case, it would be Donald Trump, and it would be tomorrow. But we've seen the former president at the RNC each night of the proceedings. Now, whether that had anything to do with the events on Saturday, I don't know. Maybe he had already planned all along to be seen and in the House each and every night. We don't know. Maybe when he gives us his remarks tomorrow night, we can get a better understanding of his mindset. We haven't seen anything of the former First Lady, Melania. She hasn't been seen anywhere. We've seen other Republican vice presidential hopefuls, people who were originally vying to be the second part of the ticket, sitting next to the former president, but we haven't seen Melania. We've seen Eric Trump. We've seen Don Jr. We've seen Tiffany Trump. We've seen Laura Trump, who's also spoken at the RNC, but haven't seen Melania as of yet. Don't want to read too much into it. But as far as conventions go, it is very unusual to not have the former First Lady there by the side of the nominee, the spouse of whomever it is. You just don't see that. So hopefully we will find out something as to her whereabouts or why she is not in the House on this evening or any other evening. Maybe she may come tomorrow night. Maybe that was her understanding, that she was only going to show up the night in which the nominee, in this case, former President Donald Trump, would actually address the convention. The only time I went to the RNC was 2008, and it was in Minneapolis. And it could be a long day. We're only seeing the evening speeches, but there are afternoon speeches, there are festivities, there are activities, there are things going on throughout the course of the day. If you should go down Media Row, you can see all, I would say, the media personalities. You get to see all the legislators, all the people that you would normally see on cable news are just walking around. Everyone is in the House, and everyone, or I should say back in the day, I can't say now, given the events of Saturday, but back in the day, you would be able to talk to just about anyone. And let's check in with the RNC. We have Donald Trump Jr., who's now approached the microphone.
And I don't think I've ever seen any sequence like we've had in the last several days.
This is Donald Trump Jr. coming out. He's a big proponent of the main speaker tonight, Senator J.D. Vance, the vice presidential nominee, the former president's son, Donald Trump Jr.
Before I begin my remarks, I'm going to do something a little uncharacteristic. A Trump is going to give up the microphone. Doesn't happen often. You may never see it again. But I got a call on Monday morning from a young lady who said, "Dad, I want to speak at the RNC." I want to speak at the RNC because I want America to know what my grandpa is actually like. So for the first time ever on a stage, first time ever giving a speech, I want to bring out my eldest daughter and the eldest granddaughter of the President of the United States, your favorite president, Kai Madison Trump.
Kai Trump to deliver remarks now.
everyone. My name is Kai Madison Trump. I am the granddaughter of Donald Trump. I'm speaking today to share the side of my grandpa that people don't often see. To me, he's just a normal grandpa. He gives us candy and soda when our parents aren't looking. He always wants to know how we're doing in school. When I made the high honor roll, he printed it out to show his friends how proud he was of me. He calls me during the middle of the school day to ask how my golf game is going and tells me all about his. But then I have to remind him that I'm in school and I'll have to call him back later. When we play golf together, if I'm not on his team, he'll try to get inside of my head. I know. And he's always surprised that I don't let him get to me. But I have to remind him I'm a Trump too. Even when he's going through all these court cases, he always asks me how I'm doing. He always encourages me to push myself to be the most successful person I can be. Obviously, he sets the bar pretty high, but who knows, maybe one day I'll catch him. On Saturday, I was shocked when I heard that he has been shot, and I just wanted to know if he was okay. It was heartbreaking that someone would do that to another person. A lot of people have put my grandpa through hell, and he's still standing. Grandpa, you are such an inspiration, and I love you. The media makes my grandpa seem like a different person, but I know him for who he is. He's very caring and loving. He truly wants the best for this country, and he will fight every single day to make America great again. Thank you very much.
It's Later with Mo Kelly. We're live everywhere in the iHeartRadio app. We're continuing to follow the RNC, waiting for the eventual speech of the vice presidential candidate, Senator J.D. Vance.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
It's all about the RNC tonight. In fact, let's go back to the RNC as Donald Trump Jr. is speaking.
Would safely withdraw from Afghanistan. They lied about Biden being a, quote, moderate. And they told one nonstop lie after another about my father. But they could only run away from reality for so long. All hell has broken loose in America, and it's impossible to hide anymore. Remember Build Back Better? Instead, we got broke, bumbling Biden. Nothing is built, nothing is back, and nothing is better. Bridges are collapsing, our credibility is crumbling, and our money is worth less and less every single day. It was just one giant bait and switch, and normal Americans are the ones left holding the bag. Housing costs, gasoline prices, grocery bills just keep going up. Wave after wave of illegal aliens, deadly drugs keep pouring across our border. Meanwhile, pro-crime district attorneys have turned our cities into giant crime zones. They've turned criminals into victims, prosecutors into criminal defense attorneys, and police into public enemies. Left-wing activists are pretending to be educators, teaching our kids that there are 57 genders, but they can't even define what a woman is. On one hand, They think free speech protects their right to expose your children to explicit drag shows. On the other hand, they want to put you in jail for making a meme. It's like the entire world has been turned upside down. Does any of this sound like a country that's going in the right direction? And honestly, who is actually running the country anyway? It's obviously not Joe Biden. So who are they asking us to elect? Seriously, who's running things? Does anyone really know? Is it Jill? Is it Hunter? Barack Obama? Maybe it's the ghost of Corn Pop. Whoever is running the show, the only thing they are effective at is persecuting my father. They twisted, contorted, and corrupted the criminal code to turn bookkeeping errors into felonies. They concocted new legal theories out of thin air. They imposed gag orders on my father because the last thing a defendant should be able to do is defend himself, right? They punished him for merely speaking the truth. They say they hate Vladimir Putin, but it sure seems like they've spent a lot of time copying his playbook. In this country, we don't criminalize political differences. We debate them. We vote on them. But we don't make you choose between picking a party or picking a jail cell. There was a time when the Democrats really wanted what was best for America, even if they had a different way of getting there. It was the party of Franklin Roosevelt, John F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King Jr. You may have disagreed with that party, but at least you could respect it. But this new extreme Democrat Party, they want us to somehow believe that the only way forward is going backwards, where hiring decisions are based solely on race, where justice is only for those with the right opinions, where streets are a luxury only for the elite, where economic opportunity exists only when you know the right people. Right now, the America we all grew up with, the America that we love, feels like an old photograph where you sit down with your children and tell them what life used to be like. You look back at that America and remember a country that was confident and proud. An America that knew who it was and what it stood for. And it could all feel like a distant memory. Somewhere along the way we stumbled. Somewhere along the way we lost ourselves. But we can't live on nostalgia. Yes, America was great, but our greatest days are yet to come. Because no matter how far off that old photo may feel, it's not the end of our story. We're like that man who stood on that platform and felt the bullet pierce his flesh just days ago in Pennsylvania. He may have moved to the ground, but he stood back up. And when he did, my father raised his fist into the air. He looked out at the crowd. And what did he say? And we will fight. We will fight. We will fight with our voices. We will fight with our ideas. And on November 5th, we will fight with our vote. I've always been proud of him, but I've never been prouder of my father than I was in that moment. That's when the world found out that there is tough, and then there's Trump tough. And the good news is, America is Trump tough. In 1912, more than a century ago, another legendary Republican president came right here to Milwaukee. At a political rally less than 1 mile from where we stand tonight, Teddy Roosevelt was struck by a would-be assassin's bullet. But he didn't quit either. He finished his speech and he kept fighting. My friends, I don't believe in coincidences, but I do believe in God's plan. Today, Teddy Roosevelt's man in the arena has a name, and it's Donald J. Trump.
It's Later with Mo Kelly. We have to take a quick break, and we expect Senator J.D. Vance, who will be speaking shortly as he accepts the nomination as vice presidential candidate for the Republican Party.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
And we are continuing to follow the RNC. Donald Trump Jr. finished his remarks, and I believe that Ohio Senator J.D. Vance is next on the slate. Something I did notice, I started the show this evening talking about how this RNC is very, it's non-traditional. It's very, very different. If you know political conventions, how they run, customarily you will have, if you have like a two-term ex-president, you always want to make sure that he is in the audience. He usually brings remarks. He usually tries to galvanize and unify the party, but you won't see former President George W. Bush. You won't see former Vice President Mike Pence. You won't see just about anyone of the previous administration, the previous Trump administration in the House. That's just something you didn't ever see because you always wanted to show some continuity with the party. But the party now is firmly behind Donald Trump and is not the Republican Party of 10 years ago or even 20 years ago. It is decidedly different in that regard. But we're still waiting to see whether former President Trump will deliver some sort of short remark because it's not unusual for there to be an introduction of the vice presidential candidate and nominee. We know that former President Trump is in the House. He's been in the House all throughout the convention. His presence has loomed large. Right now, there's what they call a two-shot. You can see former President Trump, depending on what channel you may be watching this, he's talking to former Congressman Devin Nunes about whatever. But I've noticed the placement each night. They've had different powerful Republican officials or personalities within the party sitting right next to Donald Trump. Tonight, they have Governor Doug Burgum, who's sitting on one side, and Congressman Devin Nunes on another. I noticed that Tucker Carlson was 2 seats down from him a few nights ago. And those seat occupants have changed each night. Obviously, all of this is scripted in the sense that they know that there are cameras on that area and there are cameras just sitting on it, trained on that area throughout the whole night. So you will see different names and faces throughout the week to connote a degree of unity within the party, a unity of ideology, because when you talk about conservative now, it varies amongst just Republicans. It's one thing to say, oh, he's a Republican, she's a Republican. No, the idea of conservatism has changed considerably in the past few years, and the whole idea of a rhino has changed. I remember when a rhino was someone who didn't support the conservative ideals of a decade ago or 2 decades ago. Now it's just, if you don't support Donald Trump, if you could be opposing him in the primary, if you could have an ideological difference with Donald Trump, you're often considered a rhino, a Republican in name only. And that is a new phenomenon to me, because usually you knew the Republican ideology and the conservative ideology did not center around a particular person. It usually had to do with a party platform. It had to do with party ideals and party strategy. It had to do with possible legislators that you would want to elect on a state level, or the federal judiciary, as you saw with what Mitch McConnell was doing for the past 30 years, who I would say is the architect of what you see today on the Supreme Court. And to see many Republicans call him a rhino is laugh out loud funny to me, because Donald Trump would not be in the situation and position that he's in today, in the sense of having such a strong Supreme Court favored to his political ideology, if it were not for Mitch McConnell. But that's the complex sense of how the Republican Party has gone through a change in the past few years, and how I would say the people who were considered staunch Republicans, like the Dick Cheneys of the world, 10, 15 years ago, they would be considered rhinos today. That's how much the Republican Party has changed. That's how much the world has changed. And I think, looking at Milwaukee, they're getting ready for Senator J.D. Vance. He may not be coming up next. I'm trying to see who is coming to the podium at this point. Oh, this is Senator Vance's wife.
Good evening. Good evening. When I was asked to introduce my husband, J.D. Vance, to all of you, I was at a loss. What could I say that hasn't already been said before? After all, the man was already the subject of a Ron Howard movie. J.D. has shared much of his life through his own eloquent words. In his book, Hillbilly Elegy, during his Senate campaign, and now as a sitting United States Senator. It occurred to me that there was only one thing to do: to explain from the heart why I love and admire J.D. and stand here beside him today, and why he will make a great Vice President of the United States. I met J.D. in law school when he was fresh out of Ohio State, which he attended with the support of the GI Bill. We were friends first because, who wouldn't want to be friends with J.D.? He was then, as now, the most interesting person I knew. A working class guy who had overcome childhood traumas that I could barely fathom to end up at Yale Law School. A tough Marine who had served in Iraq, but whose idea of a good time was playing with puppies and watching the movie Babe. The most determined person I knew with one overriding ambition: to become a husband and a father, and to build the kind of tight-knit family that he had longed for as a child. My background is very different from JD's. I grew up in San Diego, in a middle-class community with two loving parents, both immigrants from India, and a wonderful sister. That J.D. and I could meet at all, let alone fall in love and marry, is a testament to this great country. It is also a testament to JD, and it tells you something about who he is. When JD met me, he approached our differences with curiosity and enthusiasm. He wanted to know everything about me, where I came from, what my life had been like. Although he's a meat and potatoes kind of guy, he adapted to my vegetarian diet and learned to cook food from my mother, Indian food. Before I knew it, he had become an integral part of my family, a person I could not imagine living without. The JD I knew then is the same JD you see today, except for that beard. And his goals in this new role are the same that he has pursued for our family: to keep people safe, to create opportunities, to build a better life, and to solve problems with an open mind. It's safe to say that neither JD nor I expected to find ourselves in this position, but it's hard to imagine a more powerful example of the American dream. A boy from Middletown, Ohio. Raised by his grandmother through tough times, chosen to help lead our country through some of its greatest challenges. I am grateful to all of you for the trust you have placed in him and in our family. And with that, it is my great privilege to introduce my husband and the next Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.